We're going to shift gears a little bit today into the making money side. Now, while I am making an assumption that you already have an existing established business, I want to specifically go into how I think about integrating in an approach to making money when we are not looking at this just as a profit maximization exercise. So think about today in terms of integrating in the things we've talked about already related to what you're trying to contribute to, what your particular role in that is, how you're going to know you're making change. So I don't want your approaches around contribution and meaning to be disconnected from how you actually make money as an organization, those core business activities, your operations. Because when you think about the pieces of the two camps trap, I will share a link in the notes back to some of the episodes where we've talked about the two camps trap in case you're not familiar with it. But when we're trying to integrate this into our business model, which is what I call the internal camp, where you're not just trying to give a donation to a charity or some other cause to make a difference in the world, but you're doing this through your core business activities. The reason why today's episode is important for you to understand how you can do that is I want you to be able to have the skills to connect and identify where you're actually creating that beautiful win-win. So where some of the work you're doing, the decisions you're making, how you're spending money in your business can actually then move into a space where it's unapologetically creating more revenue, where it is giving you some kind of competitive advantage. And so competitive advantage is the phrase, if you like, that we're going to be focusing on when we explore making money in this particular approach to business. One of the reasons why I think this is also an important topic is that often as business leaders, we feel like this is an interesting conversation, this is an important conversation, but it's still something that we push off for down the track because we think, we're really busy at the moment, or our profit margins are tight, or we're not quite at the size that we want to be at before we can be more generous. Do you know that kind of language? Have you ever used that language? It feels like you're just not ready as an organization. And one of the questions that I had someone send in that they wanted me to answer was, how do you grow profitably while small, yet still making positive impact for all stakeholders? So in that question, and maybe you have this yourself, in that question, there's kind of this aspect of, how do I make this relevant today? Or how do I do this and not have it be something that actually is doing that undermining of the financial stability? I know I'm repeating that word unapologetic when I talk about making money. I'm doing that on purpose because I do want you to be unapologetic about it. There is no need for you to be uncomfortable as a business owner, as a business leader, in wanting and needing for this to stack up financially. That is not only okay, it's good. That's what you should be doing. So this exploration is really important because once you understand this and you start to pick out some of the key competitive advantages you're going to focus on to be able to make the most of and leverage those contributions you're now making in the business, you're going to be able to relax because you're no longer going to feel this pressure or tension that, oh my goodness, I'm always having to, have this trade-off or compromise on one side or the other. This year we weren't as profitable as we were, so now I'm going to have to face the team and tell them we're not actually making as big a donation as we did last year. Or this year we're feeling really nervous about the changes in the market and we want to have a bigger cash buffer. So we are going to be having to reduce the different support that we give our staff, or we're not going to give them as big a bonus, or whatever it is that comes about from that place of worry and scarcity that you're always choosing one or the other. If you've been listening to the podcast since the beginning, when it was called Both And, part of the piece that I really want to bring into your thinking is that I'm trying to equip you and move you away from that approach to business where everything's an either or decision, like I have to pick this one or that one. And if I make more of a contribution in the world, it is at the expense of the business being profitable or making money. That is something I want to equip you to not only intellectually move away from, but for it to not even be your reality. So today, when we think about making money in the context of merging money and meaning, I don't want you to just think about it related to, oh, here is how we currently make money as a business. I want you to focus in on the pieces that you've identified over the last few weeks and in the previous episodes of what it is you care about and you are contributing to, and then start to identify how could we use that in a way that actually created this win-win, where it made more money in the business or it reduced our costs in the business by actually having that flow-on effect of contribution in the world. So you'll remember I gave you the examples around Dr. Avis's business, and it wasn't a matter of she needed to make a lot of money to then be able to help her target audience and work with them for free. It was that she had brought those two things together, and in achieving those outcomes and in equipping Black women to become those amazing business owners themselves, she created the mutually reinforcing piece where as their business grew, her business grew. That's what we're looking for, connecting those dots. You will, again, for those of you who have been listening in and following along with the different approaches and methodology I've shared, you may have heard me talk about the fact that there's 3 really natural entry points for starting to bring contribution back inside your business. You can take a customer focus, a team focus, or a production focus. Today, as we look at the making money piece, I'm going to focus in on a team focus. Most people who are in service-based businesses or those types of aspects, their biggest cost in the business is team. It's having people in the mix to help you deliver the work to your customers. And so this feels like a good place to dive into and explore some of those competitive advantages. Before I go through that though and talk to you about some of the questions that we ask and how we dig in to start to connect these dots of the meaning and the money, I want to talk you through the 9 competitive advantages that I've identified that you can actually leverage when you take this approach of merging money and meaning and really embedding it in your business. So I'm going to rattle them off. I will put a link so that you can download just the list itself with some little explanations about the different competitive advantages. But here they are. So the first is that it increases revenue and or reduces cost. The second is around reducing risk. Then we have the ability to strengthen brand and improve market position. Increases in customer loyalty, improving your positioning with investors, increasing innovation, creating a better culture, creating increased sense of purpose, and increasing compliance and regulatory readiness. Now that's a pretty comprehensive list of 9 different areas. What you will find is that as you do this over a longer period of time, at different stages, there will be certain aspects of those competitive advantages that might be more important to you than at others. And I would hope that over time, you figure out how to leverage as many of those as possible in your business. But just like a few weeks back when we went on the exercise of doing your origin story and just finding that entry point, where to start. When you begin this process and you're trying to identify how to connect in what you care about to how you make money, I don't want you to pick 6 or 7 of these and say, I'm focusing on all of these. I want you to pick 3, maybe 4, knowing that there will be other flow-on effects and ways that you can make more money. But pick the ones that make the most sense. So for example, there's one in here which is around improving positioning for investors. There's lots of evidence that shows that when you do this well, you absolutely tick that box. So for example, when you have these pieces embedded and not just intuitively in place, but that you've got the systems and processes and policies in place in your organization, and you can explain the connections between how you're having more positive social or environmental outcomes, how you can demonstrate on the governance side in your business that you have pieces in place that de-risk the business. When they are there and you're at a stage where you're wanting to sell your business, all of the data shows that it increases the valuation of the company and that it speeds up the transaction time. Two really critical things if you're at that point of wanting to sell your business. But here's the thing, if you're not about to sell your business, then I don't need you to focus on that as your starting point. All of the work I'm going to get you to do will end up positioning you strongly so at the point of sale, you will have these pieces in place. But if we go back to the beautiful old saying of strategy is saying no to good things, just because there's an exciting list of 9 things, don't have FOMO. I don't want you to feel like, oh my goodness, but Bessi, I also want to reduce risks and I want to have a strengthened brand and improved market position. We can build up to all those things, but as we go through the exercise, particularly for the first time, and at any given block of time where we're trying to really be strategic and focus in on identifying how we connect these two worlds, I want you to just pick a few. So pick the ones that are most logical and that can help drive different decisions in your business. Let me just run you through some of the questions. Again, when we're thinking about, I want to tie it back to the merging of money and meaning. So we're in a category where we're looking at how we make money. But when we think about it through the lens of a team focus, which is the one I said we were going to look at today, on the meaning side, if you have a team focus, you're going to need to have already answered questions around who is experiencing positive change because of the team focus. So you're going to talk about the specifics of what you're addressing with your team. If there are certain elements, not just the whole team, if there's certain aspects you're trying to work on. So if you're doing a targeted push, for example, around parental leave or different components, then you might start to really niche down beyond just saying it's a team focus. You might be saying we're trying to address this issue, or we've got significant mental health issues or different components. So you're identifying the who and the particular aspects you're wanting to address. And then when we shift into the aspects around the making money component, like I said, I want you to tie it back to those things that you have identified within the team that you're working on. So I'm going to just jump through some of these pieces with a team focus, looking at competitive advantages and talk through what they can look like. So if we took, for example, the reduced costs as a competitive advantage, when you take a team focus and you're working on all of those pieces that we've been talking about, the ways that you can reduce costs with that relates to things like recruitment, training, the reductions in aspects around absenteeism or presenteeism. I'm not sure if you've looked into those things, but you might have teams showing up and you're paying them, but they're not really present. They're either under so much pressure at home or at work that they're not able to be productive. They might be physically sitting in their seat taking a paycheck, but you're not getting great outcomes out of them. So when we take that team focus and deeply understand what's going on for our team, we've identified the levers we can pull, how we can create a different culture and experience for the team. Some of those aspects around reducing costs come into play because we're going to reduce our turnover because people want to stay, the right people want to stay, which reduces recruitment, training, and then has those other aspects around reducing the expenses of absenteeism and presenteeism. So that's just one example related to that. When we then look at how the team focus can increase the revenue side of the business, once we can identify and start to have humming these aspects of we've got this well-trained, equipped team who have that sense of well-being and that they're cared for, and that as an organization we genuinely want them to be in a good place, there is a direct result there to increased revenue through things like improved performance, a commitment to their customers, to their teammates, the way they show up within their team and to the company as a whole. So you can see in those two examples, and I can give you some more, but what we're trying to do is, I didn't then go straight to the way that we make money is and rattle off what our products and services are that we sell to a customer. I went to the competitive advantages we now want to tie directly to doing this work and contributing in this way. Does that make sense? Can you kind of, with your business, pull in those pieces of pause on the rattling off to me how you currently make money and use the competitive advantages to now tie those back together? Because when you do that, and when you have picked your competitive advantages, it focuses your mind to always be looking for, what do I have to do here to really connect the two? Because what you will be able to then achieve, if we go back to the question that was asked today around this aspect of how do you grow profitably when you're small, like all of that tension that feels like I'm still in a place where I'm going to have to compromise here. I'll be forced to make some trade-off. When you have done this work and not thought about making money as disconnected to what you've identified you care about, when you've thought about these competitive advantages and stopped trying to do all of them and picked some key ones and directly connected them to the way you're operating your business and what you care about, you are no longer left in a position of trying to justify something you can't afford or make something a priority that is actually putting massive strain on the business. Instead, you can directly see how they're creating a self-reinforcing loop. So if you have a fellow person on your executive or someone else who is also a shareholder of the business and you're at a board meeting and people start to push back and they're saying, how can we be doing this work with the team around the mental health components and the different aspects of what we're funding? This is all a massive cost and expense to us. You now, without feeling defensive or without feeling like you have to preach and convert everyone to care about what you care about, you use these competitive advantages and the way you have sort of done the integration into your business model to be able to not only justify why it's worth doing, but explain to people that this not only gets a great outcome, here's how it allows us to be a stronger, more successful business. Here's how it allows us to attract and retain better staff. Here's how it allows us to be known in the market as an organisation that has the best people who get incredible results. So customers flock to us because they're like, wow, their team is incredible, right? So this is what it equips you with, is no longer being defensive, no longer feeling like you have to make something work or carry the burden of contribution and meaning. It now is just naturally woven into how you think about, build and operate your business.